Now the next sutta is 5.3.28. Monks, I will teach you how to make become the five-limbed Aryan right concentration. Listen attentively and pay heed, and I will speak. Even so, Lord, they replied. And the Exalted One said, Monks, take the case of a monk who, secluded from sense desires, secluded from unwholesome mental states, enters and abides in the first jhana. He steeps and drenches and fills and suffuses this body with delight and pleasure, born of seclusion, so that there is not one particle of the body that is not pervaded by this delight and pleasure, born of seclusion. Monks, just as a handy bathman or attendant might strew bath powder in some copper basin and gradually sprinkling water, knead it together so that the bath ball gathered up by the moisture became enveloped in moisture and saturated both in and out, but did not ooze moisture. Even so, a monk steeps, drenches, fills and suffuses this body with delight and pleasure, born of seclusion, so that there is not one particle of the body that is not pervaded by this delight and pleasure, born of seclusion. Monks, this is firstly how to make become the five-limbed Aryan right concentration. Or a monk, stilling applied and sustained thought, enters and abides in the second jhana. He likewise steeps this body with delight and pleasure, etc. Monks, imagine a pool with a spring, with no water inlet, either on the east side or on the west, or on the north or on the south. And suppose the Deva supply not proper rains from time to time. Cool waters would still well up from that pool, and that pool would be steeped, drenched, filled and suffused with the cold water, so that every part would be pervaded by the cold water. In just the same way, monks, a monk steeps his body with delight and pleasure. Monks, this is the secondly how to make become the five-limbed Aryan right concentration. Again, a monk, free from the fervor of delight, enters and abides in the third jhana. He steeps and drenches and fills and suffuses this body with a pleasure divested of delight, so that there is not one particle of the body that is not pervaded by this pleasure divested of delight. Monks, just as in a pond of blue, white and red water lilies, the plants are born in water, grow in water, come not out of the water, but sunk in the depths, find nourishment, and from tip to root are steeped, drenched, filled and suffused with cold water, so that not a part of them is not pervaded by cold water. Even so, monks, a monk steeps his body with a pleasure divested of delight, etc. Monks, this is thirdly how to make become the five-limbed Aryan right concentration. Again, a monk, putting away pleasure, enters and abides in the fourth jhana. Seated, he suffuses his body with brightness by the pureness of his mind, so that there is not one particle of the body that is not pervaded with brightness by the pureness of his mind. Monks, just as a man might sit with his head downwards, covered with a white cloth, so that not a portion of it was not covered with that white cloth, even so a monk sits suffusing his body with brightness. Monks, this is fourthly how to make become the five-limbed Aryan right concentration. Again, the contemplation sign is rightly grasped by a monk, rightly held by the attention, rightly reflected upon, rightly penetrated by insight. Monks, just as someone might survey another, standing might survey another sitting, or sitting might survey another lying down, even so the contemplation sign is rightly grasped by the monk, rightly held by the attention, rightly reflected upon, rightly penetrated by insight. Monks, this is fifthly how to make become the five-limbed Aryan right concentration. Monks, when a monk has thus made become and thus made abundant the five-limbed Aryan concentration, he can bend his mind to realize by higher knowledge whatever condition is so realizable and become an eyewitness in every case, whatever the range may be. Monks, suppose a water jar brimful of water so that a crow could drink from it was set on a dish. As soon as a strong man rocked it to and fro, would the water spill? Yes, Lord. Even so, monks, when a monk has so made become and made abundant the 5-limbed Aryan right concentration, he can bend the mind to knowledge, whatever the range may be. Monks, imagine a tank on a level piece of ground with dikes built up on its 4 sides, brimful of water so that a crow could drink from it. As soon as a strong man loosened the sides here and there, would the water flow out? Yes, Lord. Even so, monks, when a monk has so made become concentration, he can bend the mind to knowledge, whatever the range may be. Monks, suppose a carriage harnessed with thoroughbreds, with goat hanging handy, were to stand on the level, where 4 main roads meet. As soon as the coachman, a capable trainer and driver of horses, had mounted and grasped the reins in his left hand, and with his right seized the goat, he would drive on or back, as and how he pleased. Even so, monks, when a monk has so made become and made abundant the 5-limbed Aryan right concentration, he can bend the mind to realize by higher knowledge whatever condition is so realizable, and become an eyewitness in every case, whatever the range may be. Should he wish to experience psychic power, to hear deva sounds, to read minds, to call to mind previous dwellings, to see beings faring on according to their deeds, to enter and abide with the asavas destroyed in the emancipation by mind, in the emancipation by wisdom, he becomes an eyewitness in every case, whatever the range may be. That's the end of the sutta. In this case, the Buddha is again stressing the point of jhana, concentration, that by attaining concentration, the jhanas, you can attain the higher knowledges if you want. The last part was talking about the abhinyas, the higher knowledges, the ability to display psychic power, to hear deva sounds, sounds of spirits, etc., to read the minds of others, to remember previous lifetimes, and to see beings being born and dying and passing away according to karma. And lastly, to attain the destruction of the asavas, that can easily be attained with the Aryan right concentration. And then in this sutta, the Buddha gives the similes for the jhanas. The first jhana, the Buddha gave a simile of a person taking soap bath powder and squeezing it and putting water and gradually making it up into a ball, so that the whole ball of powder becomes enveloped with moisture, saturated with moisture. Every part of it, every particle of it is saturated with water. So in the same way, the Buddha is saying in the first jhana, every part of the body, every particle of the body is suffused with delight and pleasure, piti and sukha. And secondly, the Buddha gave a simile of the second jhana of a pool. And the pool, in the bottom of the pool, in the center bottom of the pool, a spring comes up. And the spring of cold water wells up and pervades every part of the lake. In the same way, this delight and pleasure wells up from within you and pervades every part of the body. And the third jhana, the Buddha gives the simile of a pond of water lilies which grow in the water, and water is covering them all over. Every part of them is covered by water. In the same way, a person in the third jhana experiences pleasure without delight, without pity, in every particle of the body. And then the fourth jhana, the Buddha gives a simile of a person covered with a white cloth from the head down to the toes. In the same way, a person in the fourth jhana, the body is completely bright. The mind is, the brightness pervades every part of the body. That from here you can understand why the fourth jhana is so important. Because some other sutta, you remember, I've said before that the condition for insight, the Buddha said, is a bright mind. When the mind becomes very bright, that is the best condition for attaining insight and wisdom. That is why the fourth jhana is a very, very good state for attaining wisdom. And the last one is the contemplation sign, the meditation sign is rightly reflected upon, and so that wisdom arises. That is the Aryan right concentration.